you're going on holiday, but you're going to warmer climates.
I'm off to Cape Verde.
Oh, and I've been there.
Oh, have you?
Went years ago. That was one of Abby and I's first. Let's go somewhere. Let's book now, quick. It was package holiday. There was one hotel in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, amazing.
One hotel in the middle of nowhere. But we couldn't get in the water because the waves were so big. There was people getting thrown out the water with like broken arms, legs stretchered off because they were thinking, oh, it won't be that bad. We just sat and watched people getting destroyed by waves. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah, I just booked it, and then I was reading on TripAdvisor, it says that because it's like in the water, the waves are often so big it's unswimmable. And I was like, oh man. Yeah, no. But I just to get a bit of heat for 10 days would be great. I'm just going by myself, so just got some work to do, so I'm just going to do it over there, which would be great.
What a lovely idea. What a great. Well, here, as I do, I obviously I follow you on Instagram. We're Instagram pals. We obviously met at the Blue Balls Duke at Portobello Beach, but listen to a couple of podcasts you've been on and things like that, and that really interests me. The way you view a retreat. It's not really a retreat when you go away to chill out, when you go away to take it, because you're actually having an experience. You're actually learning more about yourself, and you're someone that's quite comfortable with being on their own and taking time away.
Yeah, I do like that. I've done that quite a lot. I've done quite a few like sort of fasting retreats, 10 days, silent retreats, that kind of stuff. And I really love them. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a whole pile of things you didn't necessarily like about yourself. But at the end of it, you always feel a lot more centered and a lot more grounded and more complete. So I love being with people, but I'm a bit of an introvert, really. People kind of tire me out a bit. Too many people a lot of the time tire me out. So I like to go away and be by myself a lot.
What is I can imagine what it's like, but what did you say like one of these retreats where you don't speak? A silent retreat?
So a silent retreat I've done a couple of times, and I've also done a lot of fasting retreats. So you don't eat for 7 days.
7?
It's a bit neat.
Only drinking? Only? How does that work? Talk me through it, because I can't imagine.
So basically, day 1, day 2, and day 3 are really hard. But once you get to day 3.5, you're kind of like, you just realize that we spend a lot of our times eating and thinking about food. And after day 3, your body starts to kind of adapt to not eating, and your focus becomes a lot sharper. And it's a really amazing way to sort of, for me anyway, I always feel really amazing at the end of doing a fasting retreat. You're not doing it to lose weight, but just to give your body a bit of a rest from all this digesting and all this kind of stuff. So I've done that a few times in Thailand, but under the sort of care of people that know what they're doing. I wouldn't suggest that you just go headlong into not eating for a week.
That's
in
it.
Scotland.
Start tomorrow. Start not eating for a week.
Boom, we're in.
Boom, go. What when you say they're sort of looking after you, how can they look after you if you're just not eating food? I would mean energy levels, tiredness. Does that all kick in, or have they got methods and things to get you through it?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, a day on a retreat when you're not eating is that you're still getting up quite early, and you're drinking a drink which has got psyllium husk in it. So psyllium husk keeps your body moving, as it were, inside, so that you don't just.
Is that street legal? Is that street legal stuff?
Yes, it's great. It's really bland. Oh God, are we really going to talk about this? And then you have and then you do colonics 3 times a day.
Oh gee, I'm glad I asked more. So I'm definitely not going.
No chance.
So they don't let you eat, and then they clear everything else out.
Totally.
Wow.
Honestly, but at the end of it, you feel like Superman or something, because you can hear a pin drop about a mile away. But in all seriousness, it does make you feel like you've got a lot more sort of accuracy. Your brain just feels like it's working a lot better. You're sort of devouring books and understanding them really well and all that kind of stuff. So it's a very potent way to sort of make yourself superhuman, and it does last, you know.
Yeah.
There's definitely parts to those fasting retreats or silent retreats that stays with you for a lot longer, so it's amazing.
Do you remember your first meal when you got out of one of those places? Were you craving it?
Yeah, so when you're fasting, the most important thing, it's a little bit like, and you'll know this, if you go swimming in cold water, it's not really about the cold water swimming, it's about how quickly you get dressed and what you do after the swim. And it's exactly the same on a fasting retreat. It's not really about what you're doing on the retreat, it's about how you break the fast afterwards. So it's about eating very, oh, that's my cat.
Hello, cat.
Sorry.
Hello, cat. Cat and bell.
I'll take the bell off, here you go. Sorry.
That's all good. Hey, if it's not a cat, it'll be my kids that burst in the room, so don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
And yeah, so when you break the fast, you're eating really easy to digest foods that are very simple for your body to handle and take charge of and that kind of thing. So it's you're not going straight back into eating cakes and all that kind of stuff.
There's a cat's bum. That's good.
Come on, cat. Anyway.
Oh, interesting. It's something that I can't say I've ever gone for that. I've done certain, I've tried some of the fad diets and things like that, but I don't know. I'd say I'm pretty disciplined. I'm good with my training. I'm good with the cold water. When it comes to food, I'm kind of, I'm going for it. I'm pretty all in.
Yeah, do you know what? I would never have believed how amazing it could be until I did it. And starting with this, like just doing a sort of 24-hour fast or just doing something which is smaller, 3 days, just eating a mono thing. But for me, it works. I know that it's a bit weird. My husband and I have both done quite a few fasts before. So for us, it works pretty well. There's certain times of year it's better to do it than other times of year and all that kind of out there stuff. But I love anything to do with like mind-body connection, meditation, looking into fasting and all that kind of stuff. I'm up for trying, and some of it's worked, some of it's been a bit like what, but yeah, there you go.
And what is your diet like normally? Are you vegan, veggie, everything?
No, I was veggie for a while, but went back to eating a bit of meat. I'm really lucky up here. We've got a lot of really amazing local farmers, so I do eat a bit of meat. I'm pretty healthy with my diet. I don't eat much refined sugar, or I don't have any dairy. I find that dairy, like over trial and error, my husband has had quite restrictive diets in the past. He's a rock climber, but he also had a condition in his spine called ankylosing spondylitis. And through diet, he's managed to get all that inflammation under control. So I've followed a lot of diets in the past, ketogenic diets, cutting out like wheat, dairy, sugar, no sugar for like 4 months, including vegetables and fruit that have got sugar in them. And all those things some of them have worked, some of them haven't. So now I'm pretty good with my diet, and I don't eat much processed food. Everything I just kind of cook from scratch. But yeah, it's obviously now and again I'll have something which is probably a bit more, yeah.
Can we have a cheat day on Christmas Day or something? You have a cheat day every now. I mean, that's exactly one of the things. It's something though. But even watching what you do and catching up with you in Edinburgh when you had your beard on and you just blended in, with the Edinburgh Blue Balls, you're very positive on mental health and helping and doing what you can in that regard. But more often than not, it's for men's mental health. Do you see a major lack in what's going on in the world, certainly in the UK, with men's mental health? Because you're really putting mental health on the map for both men and women, but you're doing a lot for the men as well.
Well, I think part of it is that in terms of the swimming stuff, I think that there's been a lot of publicity and a lot of media support around getting women into cold water for mental well-being, and women of a certain age doing it because it makes them feel great in a community and for their mental health. And it just really struck me that there's a lot of guys that really need that support too. And then when I was looking at the suicide rates across the UK, the men are like 3 times more likely to commit suicide. They're less likely to access talking therapies on the NHS. They're less likely to talk about things openly, sort of toxic masculinity, being really sort of prevalent. And that's why I did the swims in January and met up with you, was just to really kind of show and profile that, look, there's loads of guys swimming and getting into cold water for their mental health, or just because they enjoy it. But if you enjoy something, surely that's also good for your mental well-being. And so that's why I was doing the stuff that I did in January and capturing those stories. And it was absolutely brilliant, because every guy that I swam with was, you know, some of them were like, had been doing it for a long time and had been getting into cold water for a couple of years. And some had never tried it before. And just really showing that, look, everyone's got a place in the water, and it can be really beneficial for males as well as females. So just give it a go, and trying to show that, you know, there were people that were maybe not so into it for the swimming part, and then there were people that were maybe more into it for the therapeutic nature of getting into cold for fitness, or for I swam with quite a lot of the British Olympic hopefuls for climbing, and lots of people just doing it for different reasons, but ultimately all feeling great at the end of it. And so, yeah, you know, and we've set up now a group which is similar to the Blue Balls in Edinburgh and down in Cumbria, and that was amazing as well. Like the first day that we ran that, there was like 23 guys turned up, and I loved it, because I was in the water with loads of guys, and that was a really different experience for me as well. So I think everyone should be caring about the guys that they know mental well-being, be it their brothers, uncles, you know, partners, friends, that kind of thing. So
yeah, I've done things like that when I've put out things on social media or spoken on the podcast, and it's kind of, I've made a call out to the girlfriends, the wives, the partners, because I've said, your husband or boyfriend will not do anything about it. Your husband or boyfriend will not message, will not pick up the phone, will not say that actually interests me, because life will just keep going. Life will just keep going. It's interesting that the women will talk. As we know, women will share a problem. But that was something that I related to. And I did an Instagram live with Mark, who he almost says he accidentally created the Edinburgh Blue Balls, because he was wanting to go into cold water. He had that relationship with his daughter through lockdown, where they would go down to the beach at Porty into the water. He wanted to keep doing it. And then he put a thing on Facebook. Some guys turned up, and it's just snowballed from there. In that community, when you get there on a Sunday morning, and there's minimum 20, up to 50 beyond, I can't remember how many, there was tons there when you were there. Just walking into that, if it's your first time, helps. You know, it's like I always say, I'm very familiar with the rugby world. If you move city or you move town or country, you find the rugby club where you've instantly got 15 to 20 pals, you know, and then your missus has got some friends in the rugby club. You find a community and get into it, and everything becomes that little bit easier to talk, ask questions, find a job, you know, whatever. It's that community. It's that community. It's so important. And I can see that Blue Balls community bouncing off to all over Scotland now. There's little sort of fragments splintering off, and they're all sort of connecting. There's a real bit of momentum here for cold water, for men actually starting to talk, get into their budgie smugglers, their shorts, whatever, gloves on, boots on, water bottles ready. We're all showing a little bit more, okay, I'm up for this, but there's a water bottle to warm me up after, you know, some of these big hairy men.
Totally. And that's what I really loved about, so I've swum with quite a lot. I think in January, I swam with 102 different guys. And then obviously we've set up the group, which is now in Cumbria. And it's just ace, because I follow a lot of those guys on Instagram now, and I'm seeing that they're going down to the water every day, you know, and that's totally on the back of the stuff that was happening in January. And just that, like, oh, my wife's always been into it, and I never wanted to give it a chance, but then she said to get in touch, so here I am, you know, that kind of reluctance there. And then it's like, wow, you're swimming more often than me now, isn't this amazing? And a real ownership, because it's something which is for them. And it's exactly the same as why women are swimming. It's like community, makes you feel great. You're stripping down to like barely nothing, and no one gives a shit about whether you're, what size you are, you know, what shape, what fitness you've got. It's just like, let's just get into this cold water and have this connection and have a chat with the dog walkers saying, yes, it's cold.
I know.
You're
not going in, are you? Aye, that's why I'm half naked here with no shoes on. You know, have you just been in the sea? Yeah, that's why I'm absolutely soaking, trying to get past you. Yeah, every time.
Totally.
Every time.
Totally that.
But to anyone that's listening, and there will be people that have thought about it and never mentioned it, and seeing people on Instagram, half the battle is getting to the beach or getting to the reservoir edge. Once you're there, you'll get in. It's getting off the couch, it's driving the car, it's packing your kit, you're going to forget something, you're going to think, I need that next time. Like Gilly, when I'm standing there on Portobello Beach, do you remember what you handed me? The little hand warmer out your pocket. I had nothing because you messaged. I was there with about 25 minutes notice. I'm running down, had the two boys with me, and I'm absolutely freezing. Got my dry robe on, trying to warm myself up, and you hear, hold this. Absolute game changer. So I'll be invested in a couple of those. You pulled out like hot water bottles from your pockets. You had one up your jumper. That was I got an education that morning.
Two little hot water bottles the size of your hands, and then another one stuffed down your front. It's a total game changer. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's the thing. It's just the sort of showing up. It's a bit like they say that the hardest move in yoga is the one getting onto your mat. You know, and it's just, you just need to start. You just need to set an intention, and that's it. And I run a free group for mental health for swimming, and it's like the first Sunday of every month, and it's just about literally, if you just show up and today you're just watching, then that's a win, you know. And then if next time you get up to your knees, that's a win as well. And you know, you can be all Strava and competitive and all the other aspects of your life if you want to, but just having that connection with the water and the community is what I just love to celebrate. And I'm a swim coach now, and that's definitely where I'm wanting to put all of my time and effort. And I'm, you know, working with a couple of really amazing charities now about helping just anyone just find the water for themselves. And it's just flipping amazing because it's free. You know, you don't need much kit apart from maybe a hot water bottle and a flask of tea, but that's about it, really. That
is all you need, isn't it? And the mindset that you're going to do it, and the mindset that once I'm out of that cold water, I'll feel so much better.
Totally. Setting an intention is absolutely everything. Just set an intention to do it, and then that's it. It's about, you never regret a swim. I've only regretted a swim like twice in my life, and I think that it's that thing of like, once you start, it's like running or something. You just need to get your trainers on. It's half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, come on, you can't just skip out what happened on those two cold water dunks. What happened?
So one of them was, a few years ago, I was swimming every day in January, which I've done the last couple of years. I was swimming every day in January, like 3 years ago, and I needed to do a swim, and I'd been working all day, and I was like, right, the river in Kendall, I'm just going to get in there. I don't want to drive out to Windermere, blah, blah, blah. And there's a kind of scrotty bit of river in town, and it's behind Screwfix and like a multi-story car park and all that kind of stuff. It's not the bonniest place. And it's I got in there. I was like up to my knees in like mud, and there's all these people walking past, and it was just really deeply, deeply unpleasant. There's a couple of horses that are there, and it was like manure, and it was just not bonny. So that was one. Honestly, it was horrid. And then the other one was one time I just got too cold. I just stayed in the water too long. I was with a bunch of mates and wasn't mindful of how I was feeling in the water, and got out and got that kind of after drop really badly, and sort of started to faint. And that's the other time, but you only do that kind of thing once. And I learned from that to just always try to, even though you're in the water and it's cold, try to be in your own head as to where you need to be getting out, and not staying thinking, I need to stay in a wee bit longer because they're staying in a bit longer today. And so that's my 2 times only I've ever sort of regretted a swim. So that's okay. After all the years of doing it and all the hundreds of days.
You're famous for your ice dunks, and obviously across Instagram we see you smashing ice and being up to your neck in the ice, holding the ice. Do you have a preference? Is it the colder the better every time? Do you look for the coldest it can possibly be? Do you look for the challenge, or is there a different experience every time for you?
Do you know what? That's a really great question. And I don't think I've been asked that before. I really love seeking out ice when it's around. And I really like having that like sort of adventure of getting up high to where I would normally go climbing, and to find a body of water that's frozen underneath some mountain crags where I'd be climbing. And I do really like it when it's a bit colder, especially if there's ice. And maybe it's because of my sort of northeast of Scotland heritage, but I used to do a lot of curling when I was younger. So there's maybe something about the ice which is like reminding me of being small and curling or something. But I do like it. I do like the ice. But I definitely swim more when the water is about 12 degrees. And in the summer, when the weather gets a bit warmer, I don't tend to swim so much.
Okay. What about your childhood? Because up in Scotland, I know you get back here as often as you can, but fond memories of growing up in Scotland?
Oh yeah, totally fond memories. Like a bit of a free range childhood, and had a really nice time, up playing. I don't know, like it was, I'm definitely, was lucky to have a childhood which was like sort of off screens, no internet, just say to your mum and dad what time you're going to be home at, and you'd definitely be home at 5 o'clock, and they had no idea where you were, and you were just cycling up and down the railway line and all that kind of stuff. So pretty free range childhood, and loved it. Like the northeast is where I'm from. My dad and mum were really into going out, making up our own sort of games and stuff on beaches, and finding stuff and learning about trees, and really being in nature as much as possible. And shorts and a Peter Storm jacket were what we wore, and it was like you just got wet, but you just dried yourself.
But you had wellies
and
on as well.
Wellies, exactly. So yeah, and I do try to get back up to the West Coast and up to Aberdeen a good couple of times a year, and I always bob past Edinburgh because I studied in Edinburgh. So it's nice to get back to Edinburgh, and I don't recognise any of Edinburgh now, it's all changed so much, but it's nice to get back to Edinburgh and see the bits I do remember. So yeah, it's cool.
And have you always been getting in the cold water, and have you always been climbing, or are these things and skills you've picked up along the way as like going through university? Did a career through university emerge, or how's this sort of process to today arrived?
So I was kind of not actually sporty at all when I was growing up. Definitely was that person that would be like last doing the cross country and shying away from any kind of like doing anything. I did curling, which is sporty a bit, but I did that. I did a lot of curling, but I did a lot of music and a lot of art, all that kind of school stuff, but definitely wasn't sporty. And it was only really I learned to climb like in my late 20s, moved to Chamonix in the Alps when I was about 30 something, and after I got a career break from a big corporate job that I was doing, I got quite burnt out, so I took a year off, moved to the Alps, got into snowboarding and climbing there. And then when I moved back to the UK, I realised I didn't want to go into that corporate job anymore. And that's when I really started doing a lot more stuff to do with being outside more. So doing a bit more like sort of running and a lot more climbing. And then really the swimming, was never a competitive swimmer, but the swimming just took off when I moved up to the Lake District because I realised it rained a lot. Couldn't really climb as much as I wanted to because the crags were often really wet. So started getting into the lakes here with a group of pals, and didn't swim the first winter, but after that second winter I did, and the rest is history. Just was a complete convert to it and just loved it. And I still climb a lot. I still do a lot of rock climbing, and I run a rock climbing festival in Sheffield, which is to help more people get into and access rock climbing, trad climbing. So I've sort of become more outdoorsy as I've got a bit older, and more connected to nature as I've got older, which is kind of not, I suppose everyone's progression is different, but yeah, that's what my progression has been. So
what was that time in your life like when you moved away from the corporate? Was that a scary time, or was it easy for you to do? Was there worries? And I mean, going from a secure job in and comfort to the maybe the unknown, or what am I going to do now?
I was earning a really excellent sort of wage, and I'd been living in San Francisco, and then laterally I was working in New York, and I moved back to the UK, but I realized that there was probably something a bit more, and I'd had a bit of a kind of realization that, you know, you can have, you know, a nice car and a nice house, but then all you're going to do is just like then be wanting the next nice car and the next nice house. And I could kind of see that a little bit with the people that I was working with a little bit, and just realized that maybe I wanted to do something else. And so when I moved back to the UK, I was sort of looking for a bit of a change, looking for something that was going to fulfill me a bit more than just this hefty paycheck. And it definitely was a really hard transition, because, you know, I grew up with you know, parents that were career driven, went to university to, you know, studied at five years university, all to do work which would be a proper career. So kind of turning a back on that when I should have been going more into that world was quite tricky. And it's funny thinking back on it now. I can't really believe that I did it, but I just moved from doing corporate retail into outdoor retail. So it didn't feel like such a massive step. I was still doing retail, getting paid a bit less, but at least I was working for brands that were more outdoorsy. And then everything sort of filtered out from that. So it was incremental steps of like, I'll do this bit, then I'll do that bit. And it's a bit like, you know, like in sailing, it's like just it wasn't like a 10-degree shift I was doing straight away. It was just a 1-degree shift. And then over time, a 1-degree shift today can mean that, you know, in 5 days' time, you're going to be in a completely different direction. So for me, it was like little bite-sized degree shifts towards an end goal that was somewhere, you know, further away. But I think that would be the way that I would now advise other people to do it, is don't think I've got to all of a sudden do this thing, you know. And now I'm freelance and I do lots of different things, but I did go part-time with my job, and then I went down to 3 days a week, and then I ripped the plaster off completely and went, see ya. And now I'm freelance. So that's kind of how I would advise other people to do it. You don't have to be everything overnight. You can just build into it and just turn the direction slightly to roughly where you want to go to and see what happens.
And has your illustration been something that's constantly been with you? Have you always been drawing? Have you always been creating, even when you had the corporate job and life in America and things like that?
Yeah, so I wanted to be an illustrator when I was at university, and I went to art school, but I studied a Bachelor of Science there. And but I did always draw, and ironically, it did sort of help me with a lot of my work that I did in that corporate world. I was sort of the creative one that was coming up with wacky ideas to like implement sales plans and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that work sort of helped me get to where I got to with that company. And then since then, I've now made it into more of a profession. And I do a lot of illustrations for rock climbing and swimming, and I've illustrated a few bits and bobs for meditation and mindfulness for children as well. So lots of different ways to kind of to pull all the strings together, but it's sort of outdoorsy, swimming and climbing. And I'm rubbish at drawing animals, but that's okay. So I turn down commissions for animals quite a lot. I just give them to my friend. She's much better at drawing animals than I am.
I've been on your website and things like that. What's so, here's me trying to ask a stupid question about art that I know nothing about. What's so challenging about animals compared to humans?
Oh, do you know what? I think that probably my animal drawings are probably fine, but I just think they look really rubbish. So everyone's their own worst critic. I can draw animals that are make-believe, but not animals that are like horses or something, or dogs or anything like that. It's just terrible. Yeah. I guess it's because they need to mechanically look like they work, and mine look like they would just fall over, unless they're fictitious ones. I'm really good at drawing like flying fish and dragons and stuff, but I don't get many commissions for them. But
your website, I urge people to go and check out your website, because it is so personal to you. The script, I was going to say the script, but the illustrations, the way you do them, the wavy lines, everything. It is just a personal website, isn't it? It's so nice and well designed.
Thank you very much. My friend James did it for me, so I just did the drawings and he just plugged everything in. I'm a real Luddite when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, I'm sitting here on my desk at the moment, you can't see, but if I was to turn the screen around, you'd just be looking at, I don't know if you know the word in Scotland, like a burach. It's a total burach, you know, it's like there's just stuff everywhere, and there's pens and there's pots and there's bits of, there's just stuff everywhere. I'm not very organized. So.
I think that's the way the world's gone through COVID, with all these Zoom calls and things, isn't it? And people,
I know, right?
Big corporate jobs, shirt and tie, pair of shorts on, or their boxers, no socks, you know, or they've got their football kit on halfway down because they know that's where they're going straight after the meeting.
Totally.
How have you survived through lockdown? How have you got on with it? I can tell.
Oh God, you know, it's really funny. If you know, I feel guilty about saying this, and I appreciate that I'm coming from a place of I'm really grateful, and I'm very privileged to say that, you know, lockdown for me was great, you know, because I was obviously it was really, you know, hard and weird and all of those things, but in terms of actually living up here in the Lake District, right behind my house there's a forest, and then you're up onto the Scar, and then you're up into the mountains, and there's quite a lot of really clear, beautiful bodies of water up here that I could access by cycling to, that are in the town and just out onto the fells. And you know, I had some projects. I picked up a wee bit of work for bits and bobs to do with drawing, and obviously it was hard, but I quite enjoyed this sort of simplicity of things. And then as things started to open up, it was great to still be able to get into the fells relatively easily, being up here and finding clean bodies of water to get into, which a lot of the country just didn't have that, and still have trouble finding access to clean bodies of water. But you know yourself, it's like living near the sea or living, you know, somewhere that's a little bit out of a city is just a real godsend and a real privilege when things like that happen. You know, having a wee bit of fresh air just to have a fire is just great, isn't it?
I know exactly where you're coming from, and I echo what you're saying, at how hard it's been in COVID and the illnesses that we've seen and the deaths. It's tragic, but there was something during that time, and I talk about it, the time I had with my kids. I'll never get that back. I would never have spent as much time with them. And still to this, I can see it getting eked out of me now as work really opens up, as I've got to be in town. The office is open 9 to 5, but when you own the business, you're never there. You're there longer, or you've got to do other bits and pieces. I can see it all kind of going back to the way it was. So those 2 years of lockdowns, almost cherished. It was challenging. Mm-hmm. Homeschool was brutal. There's been arguments, mm-hmm. There's been, you name it, it's gone on in this household. But I'll never forget how much time I spent with my family. You know? Yeah,
I know. And it's really funny because it's even things like the bird song up here got louder because there was no traffic, you know, and all those tiny little things that made us more connected, you know, to each other and to the area that we were living in up here. I just appreciate those things so much more. So I think that lots of people have taken still quite a lot from that, and I think that a lot of people have navigated the world now differently because of what happened for those few years. And I just hope that people can still pull on the positives that they were given, if they did have them, you know, in their lives. But it is quite nice that, well, like I say, you know, you can do a wee bit more traveling now and see people and hug people again, you know.
No, it's nice. It's definitely easing, isn't it? It's definitely getting a bit more. Well, even 50 guys getting together outdoors with the blue balls in Edinburgh. You know, some people may still frown upon that. Oh, look at that group form. Oh, no. We need this. We're back in. They're putting 67,000 people in Murrayfield. Sport is back open. Groups, events, things are going on. It feels good that you can go and do these things. But I won't lie, and my wife would 100% back this up, that it's good having a bit of that, but getting your own space and being a bit of a loner, shutting the gate to the garden and just running to the sea on my own. Still need time for that as well, you know?
Yeah, fully.
Definitely. It's a challenge to get the balance sometimes. Definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to change the subject completely. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say that I think one of the nice things that came out of lockdown is that so many more people found a connection to the water.
Yeah.
And it's like 5 years ago, being down on the lake here, I would have been the only person a lot of the time if I went down. And now it's like, even on a day like today where it's dreich and it's like blowing a hoolie, you've got people down there and they're just having this great time. And it's so ace, because if we had to go into a situation like that again, there would be far more people that would be really sort of championing like water quality and access to bodies of water that are clean. And I think that's something like we've got more custodians of the water now, which is like, and campaigners to be protecting those bodies of water. And I think that's a really good thing, so long as it's managed in the right way and people are not dicks about leaving litter everywhere.
What are the state of our waters like? Give us a bit of background on that. Are you worried about the way things are going, or?
Yeah, really. I mean, you know, I think I am really worried about the state of our waters. I think that you know, there's new policies that have just been passed just in the last week about the allowance of sewage, unprocessed sewage, which is being let into our waterways, especially down in the south coast of England. But and even in Windermere, you know, there's huge struggles and challenges there with more flooding, meaning that there's more, you know, flooded, polluted water coming into the bodies of water. But hopefully now, with so many more people wanting to have clean water to swim in, there's going to be louder voices that are going to be campaigning for that. So, you know, the bodies of water in the Lake District, there's 3 pristine lakes left that haven't been polluted. They're crystal clear, they're absolutely beautiful, but it really doesn't take long, only can take less than a year for those bodies of water to lose that. And that would be an absolute disaster, because it never goes back, you know. Once it's gone, and it's a bit like, you know, the world as it is, we have to really protect these bodies of water, and they're so precious. And in the Lake District, we have a lot of challenges with invasive species, and they get stuck to the bottom of paddle boards or boats or swimmers' goggles, and we just need to make sure that we're not like polluting clean bodies of water with invasive species which are hanging on our goggle straps as we go into these clean bodies of water. So there's a lot of campaigning here and elsewhere that happens about that. So it's just like, that's why I guess I swim a little bit less in summer, is because I just end up picking up bags and bags of litter and putting out fires and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, ugh. But yeah, that's another whole chat.
And are you is it always the lochs and the reservoirs for you over in the lakes rather than the sea, or have you got a preference?
I love swimming in the sea, but there's not that much close sea to here. There's like down in Morecambe Bay, but it's quite tricky to find safe places to swim there because it's very, very tidal, and there's also quite a lot of mud. So if I lived, but when I'm over on the west coast of Scotland, I just love swimming in the sea, but it's not something that I've done that much of. I love swimming in rivers and lakes and waterfalls and stuff here. But there's, I guess, I like the simplicity of swimming in a loch or a lake or a river, because you don't have to get all sandy and you get sand in all your bits and stuff. And it's nice just to have a bit of a wash in the morning in the lake and then not feel like you need to rinse yourself off. But I like both, to be honest. And if I could have a nice stretch of sea here, I would be in it just as much as I would in the lochs, for sure.
That's it. We like to mix it up a little bit when we can get up to a reservoir or something. It definitely is when it's that peaty water. And you got the brown vision underneath. If you got the GoPro and all these movies that you can make, it's a lot of fun mixing up from the sea and the big waves and stuff. Now we like to mix up as well.
Totally.
Take it the climbing and talk to us about your festival. Is that on this year? How's it been over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so the festival is something I just came off a call actually with the directors of that. The festival is called the Women's Trad Festival. It's going to be in its 7th year this year. It's a rock climbing festival. I guess it's probably the biggest of its kind in the world for what we're doing. It's a festival which has been designed to get more women into rock climbing, specifically trad climbing, and it's open to all ages, genders, and abilities. So we have about 15-20% guys there, and it is we have new people that have never climbed before that can show up. They can borrow all of the kit and they get 2 days of mentored instruction. Or we have people that have climbed for a long time, but they want to just improve their climbing. And again, they get 2 days of instruction. And then we have brands that support the event, and they will come and help people like with kit. And we are a carbon neutral festival. Last year we had 350 people on site. We sold the tickets in less than a minute, and we had 4 bin liners of rubbish at the end of the festival. We have subsidized places. We have a lot of disabled climbers that come to the festival, so it's helping anyone who wants to give climbing a go, because climbing's quite expensive to get into, and the kit's quite expensive, so it's just a way for everyone just to be able to come and have this experience outdoors in a shared way. We do a ballot now, so people apply for a ticket and then we just basically pull them out of a hat. I mean, we don't pull them out of a hat, but you know, and so that's how it works. And it's just ace. It's just absolutely brilliant.
When is it?
It's the last weekend in July, and the tickets will go on sale on the 1st of April, and the ballot will be open for 2 weeks. The reason that we do a ballot is because some people, you know, if they're like a parent who wants to come and they might not be able to fill in the application form like there and then, and people that have maybe got a learning difficulty might not be able to fill in the ballot. So we do a ballot. It's much fairer to do that now. And yeah, it's just a lovely sort of lovely festival. There's loads of films online on womenstradfest.com about previous festivals, and about what sort of thing we've created there. So yeah, it's a good crack. I'm trying to get a bit of swimming involved with it as well, but I've still yet to manage to do that bit.
Okay, and when you say trad, excuse my interest, is that traditional climbing, or is trad an actual type of climbing?
Yeah, so trad means traditional climbing. So
okay.
Basically, if you've got a one level, you've got like the Olympic sport, which is sport climbing. So you've got pre-placed pieces of gear that are in a rock face or in a climbing wall, and then you put a carabiner into them, and then you'll climb up. So it's quite a sort of perceived safe form of climbing, where you're just basically putting a carabiner into a pre-placed bolt. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got trad climbing or traditional climbing. So that was the original form of climbing that was really done, you know, across the world, where you were putting in your own pieces of gear. So little wedges you're putting into slots and cracks in the rock, and that is your protection. You clip a carabiner into them, and then when you get to the top, the second person climbs up and cleans all of that up. So it's the form of climbing which is possibly the hardest to learn, because you have to learn about rock placements and about rock types and about what's safe and when to press on and route reading and that kind of thing. So it's a very adventurous form of climbing, and it's very much a partnership, like you and your the person that you're climbing with. It's very much about your relationship with each other and about trusting each other and about communication. And it's a really lovely way to climb. I like trad climbing probably the most. I really love sport climbing, but trad climbing is where the sort of adventure side to it comes into. So
what about the speed climbing? Do you like watching the speed climbing? That's pretty intense.
Yeah, speed climbing is like, what is that? But it's not something that it's not something that I had ever really sort of seen or really appreciated before. I mean, I obviously knew about it, but it's definitely something which has been sort of delivered to the world in a much bigger way in the Olympics. But I know literally hundreds and hundreds of climbers, and I know only 2 that speed climb, and that's because they're GB Olympians. So
the real deal. The real deal. Okay, then what about go to the other extreme, El Cap, Alex Holland? What do you think of him and everything he's achieved?
So I've climbed with Alex.
Have you?
Yep. He really likes Lego. And Alex is an exceptional climber, and he's a really, really lovely guy. And I climbed with him in North Wales, and we've climbed together for a couple of days, and built some Lego galleons together. And yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a sport which is going to have those amazing sort of outliers which are just doing it in a different way to everyone else. And solo climbing, I've done a bit of solo climbing, obviously not to the level that Alex has, and it's definitely something which is, really does have its merits. It's not something that I would recommend anyone does, but it does sharpen your mind a bit. But Alex is completely exceptional in what he's done in climbing in all disciplines, and he's a really lovely guy. He's really got his heart in the right place in terms of where he's wanting to take his climbing and his foundation that he set up as well.
Yeah. Did you meet him before the documentary, before he climbed El Cap, or after?
I met him, it might have been before. I think it might have been before he did Free Solo. I think it might be before he did Free Solo. Yeah.
It's crazy. And when you heard that he was going to take that on, or did you think, yeah, that guy's capable?
No, I remember. I did think that, because Alex is he wouldn't do anything unless he was absolutely certain that he would be able to achieve it. I think it was pretty bold. I think it would have been a really hard gig for the film crew, because as much as he knows his own mind, the film crew would have been filming that, and I think that comes across really well in the film. My husband is quite a bold trad climber, and I've belayed him on a lot of his very hard ascents where if he fell off, it would have been quite a serious thing to happen. But I know that with Charlie, he won't do those things unless he knows that he's 100% certain. So it's a really interesting balance between setting your mind to absolutely do that thing and not allowing any sort of uncertainty to creep in. It's a really interesting psychological endeavor, watching people soloing or doing really hard routes where falling off is really not an option.
Well, and you're right, and that's echoed. I've interviewed guys like Aldo Kane, ask him about cave diving and what he's done and things like that, and the rope descents and things like that. He's like, well, no, I'm not that worried, because preparation, I've done everything. I have done absolutely everything to make sure it doesn't happen. You know, it's echoed across the professionals and the people that work at the highest level. That's usually the answer, as you said, that I get back is, well, no, because we have thought it through. We know the pitfalls, we've prepared, and we wouldn't be doing it if we thought there's a definite chance of me dying here. I am ready for this when they take on these challenges. Really interested in that mindset.
Yeah, it's really, and it's about mitigating the risk to as close to zero as possible. And you're never going to mitigate any risk in the outdoor world to zero, because there's always going to be uncertainty that can happen, but it's leveling it out with what's an acceptable level of risk, and I think it's that question. And I think with the Trad Festival, what we're doing is we're teaching people to understand where to take that level of responsibility and to really tune into that, and to understand, look, with your skill set that you've got just now, that is completely, what you're doing now is completely at the level that you're at, but don't go and do that bold thing over there, because your level of risk could be way higher. And I think it's really important to still teach that in people. And it's the same with ice swimming. It's the same with anything. It's like, look, do your research, get the hours under your belt. Don't just go and do this crazy thing, because you will have an accident.
100%. Now, speaking of festivals, the Kendall Mountain Festival, so it's something I've never been to. I'm going to go this year. I've said to Abby, we're going to make it this year. But I'm right in saying you had a movie in it last year. You had something going on that was my pal Rob, who you were up swimming with at North Berwick. He was involved with filming and all that. Give us a background on that.
So that film is a film called Body of Water. I think it's still available on the Kendall Mountain Festival player for 1 year. And it's just a short film. Well, short, it's about 40 minutes. And there's some really awesome footage that Rob shot. And it's basically about my winter journey to find ice not last winter, but the winter before, so 2 years ago. I was approached by 2 filmmakers who wanted to capture my swimming every day in January for charity, and basically there was no ice. so we had to change tack a little bit, but the film sort of changed and morphed into something else, and more not really about so much, ice swimming, but more about me and my journey from going in the corporate world to finding a different way to be in the outdoors. And it captures why I love cold water and outdoor swimming so much, and why lots of other people do as well. So it was a real joy to make the film, and the great thing is that the 2 filmmakers are now quite into doing cold water swimming and ice swimming now as well, so I managed to get them in. It's like swimmer's revenge, really. But yeah, it was an ace project to be part of. It's a shame that there wasn't so much ice. I was a bit disappointed about that, but we did get ice for the end of the shot, so that was fine.
Yeah, awesome. No, in the Kendall Mountain Festival, what's your history there? Have you been many times years over?
Yeah, I used to work, so I worked for a rock climbing brand for a few years, for 9 years, and I would work at Kendall Mountain Festival, and it's a really beautiful festival. It's really expanded and grown sort of arms and legs from its sort of, I think it's in its celebrated its 40th year last year. But it's really a glorious celebration of like everything in the outdoors. So there's, swimming, running, mountain biking, climbing, skiing, blah, blah, blah. And the year before that, there was another film called Over the Edge, which is about climbing and why I love climbing so much in the rock climbing festival. So it was nice to be there again, but in a different format, doing the swimming stuff. And yeah, it's great. I think that if you come down for it this year, you'll have a really awesome time. I organised an unofficial swim on the Sunday, which was really unofficial. But there were about 100 people turned up to it. So it was great fun. There was just like everyone on the Sunday with a wee bit of a hangover getting into the water, which was ace.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I watched it last year. I've watched the movies and the films as they come out, and it's something I want to be. As I grow the show and this podcast and hosting and all the stuff I do, it interests me to see how these things are put together. Interests me to see the interviewers on stage and all the conversations that are had. So I can't wait. I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of good stuff. There's amazing family tickets and stuff, and it's, you always leave feeling really inspired, and you always feel like this is like I found my tribe. And you can just have these really great chats with people in the bar that have been and doing these amazing things, or like closer to home things, and you're like, yeah, this is cool. So yeah, it'd be ace.
Yeah, Gilly, I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I really appreciate your time. I know we've been messaging back and forth for a long time. We finally got to meet, have a cold water dunk, but I'm going to ask you a massive favor. Could you hold on for another 5 minutes? My daughter interviews people and does 5-minute shows. She's 7. She's a cold water dunker. And I bet she's on the other side of that door because she knows all about your ice and your swimming and all that sort of stuff. Can I bring her on for a quick hello?
Let's do it. Let's totally do it.
2 seconds.